This week on Quality Digest Live, how to deal with people who roll their eyes at you. Whatever. See you in 15 seconds. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest. We have all been there. You are trying to introduce an idea at a meeting maybe, or explain your position on some topic, or maybe just simply ask somebody for their help at work, and they roll their eyes, right? Don't tell me you haven't had that happen, or okay, maybe you've even done it yourself. And so how do you deal with that passive, aggressive, nonverbal communication besides strangle the person, which is illegal, at least in California? So here today to explain nonviolent methods for dealing with eye rolling and other nonverbal communication is Marcia Reynolds, president of Covisioning and the author of The Discomfort Zone: How Leaders Run Difficult Conversations Turn Difficult Conversations into Breakthroughs, and the upcoming book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem. Marcia, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dirk. Glad to be here.
Okay. Well, you know, we joke a lot about eye rolling, specifically because I think, at least to me, that is probably one of the most irritating, infuriating examples of people showing their disdain for what you have to say that I can think of. More than almost anything else, the eye roll just hits a button for me and other people that I think is pretty much universal. And why do you think that is?
Well, it's exactly what you just said, is that the moment that somebody rolls their eyes, we interpret it as disrespectful, that they think what we're saying is like stupid. And so we react in a negative way. And then we make it worse because we're getting triggered and reacting to whatever it is that they're upset about that they rolled their eyes. So it becomes a cycle.
And you mentioned we talked about eye rolling here, but you mentioned in some materials that you sent me that there are other things that most of us are familiar with. I think you mentioned, looking down in a way as they change their tone of voice. Exactly, I've seen that one. Or they might hesitate or become silent, or they might just get louder and more animated as they're talking. So my question is how do we, in the workplace, deal with eye rolling and all the rest besides just reacting to the action themselves and reaching across the table and grabbing them by the neck?
Yeah. Well, most of the time when people demonstrate these emotions, they really don't even know they're doing it. And if you can breathe and not react to their eye rolling or their looking away, and just try to stay curious and say, so, it looks like you don't agree with what I have to say, or you have a different point of view. So what's going on with you? That calling it out makes the person stop and maybe even get embarrassed, if not just think about, what is it that's going on with me? And that it shows that you're curious instead of angry could further the conversation instead of shut it down.
And do you do that, let's say within the context of a meeting, okay? So there's a group of you together and you're presenting some sort of idea and you see John over there in the corner roll his eyes. Do you do what you just suggested? Do you do it right then? Or, John, I see you disagree with me on something? Or do you wait and kind of approach him after the meeting and bring that up?
Well, Dirk, it always depends on the context. If we have to move forward, it may be something where you just try to ignore what the person did and then bring it up to them on the side. But I don't think that there's really any problem if it's an open communication that you're desiring in the group. that you're not saying, oh, you rolled your eyes, what does that mean? You say, it seems to me that you have a disagreement, or you're not happy with this decision, and so I'm just interested in what's on your mind. What is it you would like to see instead? That I think it's okay to do that, because we are trying to create safety in our teams, and the ability for people to speak up, instead of keep it as a side conversation. So
Well,
I call it out.
okay, so the idea, it sounds like what you're saying is the idea here is to kind of pick up on those clues, but don't allow yourself to be irritated by them. Use it as kind of an opportunity to further discussion, to kind of tease out from them what it is that's annoying them.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that, oh, you should just notice it and say these things and don't react, because I recognize that it's natural for us to react. When your brain thinks somebody disrespected you, you're going to feel like irritated. The trick is not to get mad at yourself for being irritated, but to notice it, take a breath, breathe out the irritation, and then make the statement. And that takes some practice to do. But so it's not that we make our reactions go away, it's what we do after we react that's so important.
And why do people, I guess we could ask that of ourselves. I think because we all probably do these behaviors. But from your studies, why do people do that? Roll their eyes, or look away, or whatever. What is that response coming from when we hear something that annoys us? Why don't we just say, hey, you just said annoyed me, rather than roll our eyes?
Yeah, I wish it was that easy. There's really two things. The first is sometimes it's just behavioral patterns that we've had all of our life. Our parents say something, we roll our eyes. But most of the time it's because we don't feel comfortable to say, I don't agree with what you just said, or I don't understand why that decision was made. And because we haven't created this to where people feel safe to do that. So very few people will speak up, but they still have these reactions. And so it shows up in their eyes, and they're looking away, or the turn of their mouth.
So
that we have to create, again, it's okay to say.
Okay, so kind of if I hear what you're saying right, is you're trying to create, as let's say the manager, and you're dealing with employees, let's say, that are doing this. You're trying, by focusing on not the behavior, but on what's behind it, and trying to tease out what they want to say. You're hoping eventually, over the long term, to create an environment where maybe they will just speak out rather than act out.
Exactly. There's been a lot of research and work done around the concept of psychological safety. And they're finding that the best teams, that's what they have, is that people feel safe enough to speak up, that their ideas won't be shot down, that they can say what they want, and people may not agree, but they're not going to be call you names or stupid for saying that. So I think that's one of the things that we aspire to, is to create environments where people feel safe enough to speak what's on their mind. That's the way we get their best ideas, and to hear some of those things they may see that could derail a project, that they feel comfortable to overcome groupthink, to create the environment where people feel safe to show up as themselves, is a really great thing for leaders to do.
And we mentioned, we keep coming back to eye rolling because I think that's the most obvious one, but there's a lot of other mannerisms that people have that we may not even notice that they're doing. So can you, I know you're a coach, and you're a teacher and a trainer and a consultant and all that. So can you teach people what to look for, other than obviously the obvious ones? Are there more kind of subtle nonverbal things that people are doing that might be indicating their discomfort with what you're saying, and you can teach people to kind of pick up on those clues?
You know, Dirk, when I teach coaching, I think the most powerful thing we can do is to notice these emotional shifts, that there's always something behind an emotional shift that needs to come out in the open. So that shift could be, yes, the eye rolling, the looking away, the sigh. Um, Sometimes it's, looking down, or the turn of the mouth, one way or the other, where people may smirk or they frown. It could even be a whole shift in their body where they just kind of sink down, like, ugh, we're going through this again.
Right, right.
So just to notice those and be curious about it, like, what just happened there? What's on your mind? Share with us or me what happened, what's going on in your brain that you haven't spoken.
Okay, so we've been talking about examples, where somebody rolls their eyes and whatnot, and that you kind of address you address what's behind it rather than the behavior itself. But are there times when you should really address the behavior? And I think what I'm thinking of is maybe a meeting's going on and somebody is constantly rolling their eyes or humph or whatever, and that sort of thing, where it's noticeable to everybody else. Should you take that person aside and address the action itself as well as the behavior behind it?
Yeah. Definitely, if there's an impact on the group, on other people, especially a negative impact, you do want to bring that up. You want to let the person know, this constant behavior, this your disagreement, your feelings of negativity about what's going on is affecting everyone in the room. They feel it, and it could, bring the whole energy down. I would address the impact, but I would tie it to a goal that they would want. I know you want to be seen as credible by the team, or I know, if they want to be seen as a leader. What's happening is it's impacting the goal you want as well. And so if you want to have better relationships with your peers or to make a difference on this team, then there needs to be a shift in your reactions and your behavior in the room. And please, if there's some things that you need to say, then say them. So it's better that people hear what's on your mind than just to notice your eye rolling and your sighing.
So it sounds like you're still addressing when you're having that one-on-one conversation that you just described.
Yes.
You're still doing both. You're addressing the action, but then you're still coming back and saying what's going on behind it, right? So you're not just chastising them for the behavior. You're still at the same time trying to draw out what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just make them wrong, but I was coaching a leader who, and it was a cultural issue. She was Dutch and she was working in Latin America, and she had real issues with how they were handling employee situations, and she was rolling her eyes and sighing. But her boss had said, I know you want to be a leader, but I'm not promoting you until you have better relationships with your peers. So we were looking at, what does it take for you to be seen as a leader? And what you're doing is hurting your goal of being seen as a leader. And so that's when she recognized she needed to have different behaviors to achieve her goal. So if you can tie the behavior to something that the person wants to achieve, then it's more likely they'll make the change than just say, cut it out, don't do that anymore.
Now, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about you have a couple books out. Well, you have one book out right now. Actually, a couple books out, and you have a book coming down the pipe. I believe it's due out in June. Your recent book is the Discomfort Zone: How Leaders Turn Difficult Conversations into Breakthroughs. What can readers expect to get out of that book? What points are you trying to make there?
Well, I wrote the book because that seemed to be the reoccurring issue with all of my clients is I have this difficult conversation and the person's going to get emotional and I don't know what to say. And so I wrote the book to give them first how to handle your own reactions, how to have these conversations so they make a difference for the person that you're with, and also how to mentally prepare, so you go in with um, being centered and grounded, and with the right emotions, so your emotions don't destroy the atmosphere of the conversation. So there are steps to take before and during the conversation to have a good impact when the conversation feels difficult.
Okay. And I love the title of your book that's due out in June from Penguin Random House, Coach the Person, Not the Problem. And I think kind of the title wraps it up. Nice little package there. But what's that one going to be about?
Well, again, that's another thing that I've been working with coaches around the world, and they get caught up chasing the person they're trying to coach, trying to solve this external problem where people always have all these excuses of why the problem exists. So instead of looking at the problem, of looking at what's stopping this smart person from solving this problem on their own. What are their blocks? What's getting in the way? Is it an old belief they're holding on to? Is it an assumption they're making that isn't validated? Is it a conflict of values, or is it a fear? And it's often a fear. And if I can help the person understand their own blocks to solving the problem, they see their solutions on their own. They know what it is they need to do. And, this is the power of coaching. But yet so many coaches still get hung up on the external problem instead of coaching the person sitting right in front of them. So that's how to do that, is what the book's about.
Okay. And one before we go, so if you could leave our viewers with just one little nugget of wisdom that they leave with today, that maybe they can take right out and use in their next meeting, what would that be?
Okay. It's all about being present. I always say that people want you to be present with them more than they need you to be perfect. It's not about mastering the skills perfectly, but just being curious and present, and you care about what they think.
Yes, treating them well and paying attention to them, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Marcia Reynolds, I appreciate you joining us with this morning. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, this has been Marcia Reynolds, president of Covisioning. And by the way, be sure to check out her books. One that's out right now is The Discomfort Zone, How Leaders Turn Difficult Conversations into Breakthroughs. And coming in June, her book will be Coach the Person, Not the Problem, a guide to using reflective inquiry, coming soon from Penguin Random House. I have links down for both of those books out to Amazon down below the player page down there, so you can click them and go check them out, and hey, buy them. How about that? So that's it for today's Quality Digest Live. As usual, if you have some ideas of who or what you'd like to see on the show, let us know. Send those ideas to us at qdl@qualitydigest.com, and we will do our best to bring them on the show. That is it for today, and we will see you next week. So long.